Welcome back to the Limitless Health Podcast. And today we're lucky to be joined by Gilian Verworn from Hypnosis Niagara out of St. Catharines, Ontario. Gillian's an expert in hypnosis who has used this powerful tool to make some big transformations in terms of her own health and now helps others do the same. Welcome, Gillian. So happy to have you here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, can you give us a little bit of backstory on how hypnosis came into your world?
Yeah, so when I was getting started with hypnosis, it was actually first recommended to me by a physiotherapist. So I had chronic pain, terrible chronic pain. It was so bad that I couldn't walk. I had chronic sciatica.
Mhm.
And I had gone to so many different like experts and I'd been going through like medical system and I was pretty much dependent on painkillers in order to get around and move and just kind of dull the pain. And it sucked. It just sucked. So I had found like I had gone through a few physiotherapists and I found one that had a master's degree in pain management and he was great and he helped me a lot and I would get up to a certain point with like doing better and then suddenly I'd have these relapses that were like just awful. And so he actually recommended that I look into things like hypnosis and I ended up finding my mentor, Robbie Spear Miller. And within 2 months of learning hypnosis and practicing hypnosis, I was completely pain free.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And it hasn't come back. It felt like a miracle. And I have a background in science, I have a degree in physics. And so the physical effects of hypnosis really were a huge motivator for me to keep learning and seeing what I could do with it. And then I ended up losing like 60 pounds and yeah, and using it for all kinds of things in life. So now I own this clinic in St. Catharines where I help teach other people learn how to use hypnosis to change their lives too.
Amazing. Was the transition from like being very science minded in the past to hypnosis, was that a tough one to go through?
Not really. Like I still like there's a lot of science in
Mhm.
hypnosis. There's a lot of studies. There's been research on it and when you're looking into the history of hypnosis, it's all along the way it's being documented by doctors, by psychiatrists. So there's a lot of like scientific research. So I felt like the transition was actually very smooth in that regards. And and then once you start learning about how the mind and the body are connected, and the thing is, we've known about that for years. Like this book by Dr. Herbert Benson called The Relaxation Response. Like this book was written in the 70s and it documents his research from Harvard, where he discovered that the relaxation response is the body's way of actually undoing the negative effects that the fight or flight response can have in the body over time. So he goes through all of his research about how stress can cause so many different issues in the body and how the mind and like our thoughts actually are part of that.
That's amazing. The mind body connection between what you tell yourself and what's actually going on if you take that on. And I know you mentioned your own personal journey with dealing with pain management. Was that the big turning point? Like what actually made you decide to actually go into use hypnosis as a career and help other people?
That's a great question. I was definitely hooked. Let's just put it that way. Like once I realized that I could go through life pain-free without drugs, like and also like the pain-killing drugs, they were awful. They did such a huge number on my body. Like I felt sick all the time. The change that happened in me and then the the effects of it, the improvements in sleep, the improvements in digestion, the improvement, like it's kind of like every part of my life was improved by learning hypnosis. And I became kind of obsessed where it was like, oh my gosh, what else can it do? What else can it do? And at the same time, like I joined the Master Hypnotist Society and so took part in this community of other hypnotists who are also learning and also changing their lives, and then seeing other hypnotists working with clients, and then in my own studies working and doing work at the Burlington Hypnosis Center, and just like seeing the changes, seeing the transformations, and they're so plentiful. It's just seeing client after client and person after person, and it's kind of like after a while you just you want to know what else there is. And it felt like I had entered into a new realm that had no end to it. And I found that extremely exciting. Yeah. So I was just like, oh, I think everyone should know how to do this. I think everyone should know how to apply this in their lives because it has infinite benefits. And, I'm a mom now, and like the effects it has on parenting, the effects it has seeing it in my kids, and seeing them regulate themselves now, and just like going, like letting it just expand out into the community in this way. It's something super exciting. And yeah.
Amazing. And it's so cool how much is possible with hypnosis. Like Amanda's been doing
Yeah.
hypnosis for a while and then I'm getting into it, but it's we think that there's like one way to fix problems. And when you start to realize that there's so much more available and there's so much you can do for yourself. And so a lot of the pain stuff that
Yeah.
you talk about, like I resonate with that very much with going through years of taking medication to try and fix MS and the struggles there.
Yeah.
And it was like, there's got to be something more. And so the mindset side of things, like when you make a decision that this is what I'm doing, I'm getting healthy, and open your mind to the other possibilities showing up, it's like, oh, well, I haven't tried that, and I've heard lots of people having successes with it. Maybe that's something that could help me as well. And so I
Yeah.
think it's great. And also your kids being able to see it, like, I wish I would have learned this when I was like in high school. That would have been life changing.
I can think of so many times in my life that this would have been useful. Yeah.
Yeah, I could have handled that a lot better, right?
Yeah.
But
Well,
what kind of challenges do you help clients with typically?
So I specialize in helping people with quitting smoking and weight loss and managing stress. And I see people applying hypnosis in all kinds of ways. Sleep
Mhm.
improvements is a very common one, as well as pain management, and the variety, and like relationship strategies and communication, perform like enhancing performances. So people who come in for like things like stage fright, or enhancing their sports performance or their musical performance, or sometimes even academic performance. In general, people will come in and they feel really stuck. And a lot of times they'll, especially like, let's say someone's coming in for weight loss and they feel like they've tried absolutely everything and it just feels like they're out of control. Or same with like people coming in with who are trying to stop smoking, and they know it's like something that is ruining their life, and it just feels completely out of control. And the transformation when they go from that feeling of like this thing that's external from them that feels like it's controlling and ruling their life, to this empowered being who's like, yeah, I quit smoking, and it's a good riddance and I'm done, and realizing that they can actually have that transition and that journey. And yeah, you're right. It absolutely helps for them to see examples of other people who've done it. And it's like, oh, here's an example of a person who's similar age, has been smoking for a similar amount of time, and you can like relate to that experience. And then you know that they've done it, so you know that you can do it. And it cascades. You get this like success after success, where because people are seeing the success of others, and they're using that to motivate themselves and inspire and get inspired as well. And then they're seeing, and then they use the hypnosis, and it all just kind of blends together.
Yeah. And I heard a while ago that like as soon as you tell a story or you show a testimonial, people by nature, we're putting ourselves in that story and like trying it on. And it's like,
Mhm.
what if that could be me? And then
Yes.
the chatter comes up, right? Where it's like, oh, you couldn't do that because of this, and you couldn't do that because of this. And that's where hypnosis is such a helpful tool, right? Because we can shift those patterns, and patterns is a big part of what, as a hypnotist, help people with, right? Is finding, because if it's showing up in one area of your life, it's probably showing up in like hundreds or thousands and having a
Absolutely.
negative
Yeah. So
impact.
so that's why it's like, okay, well, what does hypnosis help with? Well, usually if a person, whatever the pattern was that was keeping them stuck to like keep smoking, for example, if they are able to get control of that pattern, then suddenly they get that control in other areas of their life too. So
Mhm.
it could be in their career, it could be in their relationships, and it just cascades into every aspect of life.
On that note, is there, of the outcomes that your clients have gotten, are there any surprising or unexpected outcomes that they've had? Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
someone comes in to quit smoking and then they come back and they've got stories of like all these other things are happening. And you're like, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. And that happens all the time. And like the number one is sleep. People will come in for one thing and they'll be like, I don't know why, but I feel so good and I'm able to sleep like so much better, and the quality of sleep, and they're waking up feeling refreshed. Enthusiasm, I'd say like there's a positive mindset. Their relationships is a big one too, actually. I noticed that more in the weight loss clients. They'll be the ones that tend to say, hey, my relationship has been improving. And a lot of that has to do with like, there's a common pattern that often comes up with weight loss where a person doesn't feel like they're worth taking care of. And so that particular pattern, once you heal that up and you gain confidence and you realize that you are worth taking care of, you are worth having health, and actually taking the actions to do that, and building trust in yourself as well, right? And that really cascades into relationships and building healthy, loving dynamics between people.
Yeah, and it's such a ripple effect too, right? In
Yeah.
terms of setting boundaries for yourself, doing things for yourself. It's the feeling of like, okay, this is safe, or this is okay, and she's doing it, and look at how happy and great she looks, or he's doing it, whatever it is, right? And then it like
Yeah.
ripples out into the community. And like you said earlier, it's the whole like, okay, well, if I could fix this one thing this way, what else can I do? So that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
And yeah, and that was very true for myself, right? It was
Mhm.
like that once I realized that my pain could be managed with my mind, and or I don't know exactly what it was, because a lot of times with hypnosis, you don't necessarily find out the exact reason for things.
Mhm.
And I mean, that tends to be one of the things that will get in the way of a person succeeding anyways, is they try to get like very hmm,
Yes.
if we were to analyze every single little detail, and I need to know all of the reasons and exactly why, but that's actually one of one of the sabotaging patterns. There's four of them. There's four of them actually. And perhaps you've heard of these before, Kate. They were identified by Virginia Satir. Have you heard of these ones before?
Absolutely, but please
Okay.
share.
All right, all right. So the first one is if you point at a wall. So we can all point at a wall. And you point at the wall and you say, it's all your fault.
It's all
It's
your
all your
fault.
fault.
Right. And then you take your hands and you put them in front of you and you say, whatever you want, I'm just here for you.
Whatever you want, I'm just here for you.
That's right. And then you cross your arms and you put your hand on your chin and you say, if one were to analyze this, one would find.
If one
Hmm.
were to analyze this, one would find.
Good. And then the last one is you throw your arms in the air and you stick your tongue out. Blah.
Ah.
Good.
Good old
So
distractor.
that's right. That's right. You know them too, Amanda.
Yep.
Yeah. So these are the four coping stances that were identified by the therapist Virginia Satir. And Virginia Satir was a genius because she knew she helped thousands of people go through change, and she recognized that whenever a person is entering into something that is a challenge or an obstacle in their life, they tend to go into one of these four coping stances. And so to describe them, she would use this story of people in a boat, and the boat is sinking and there's a hole in the boat. And so the first person is the one who put their, who's pointing at the wall, and this is the blamer. And this person says, who put this hole in the boat? And then you have the placater. And this is the person who is in the boat and they say, oh, well, I'll jump off the boat and sacrifice myself and maybe you'll all live a little longer. And then you have the person who is the computer. And this person's crossing their arms and analyzing the hole and saying, ah, yes, this boat seems to be sinking at a rate of 1 meter per hour. Will be sunk at 5 p.m. And then you have the distractor. This person is in the boat and they just look up to the sky and say, hey, look, a bird. What a lovely day. And nobody's doing anything about the boat sinking. So Virginia Satir said that there is another way of coping with situations, and it's the only way to actually allow change to happen in our life. And the only way to actually enable change to happen in our life is to do what is called leveling. And when you're leveling, it's like you're able to get into a state where you're seeing reality and you're connecting with it in such a way where you know what it is you want. So for example, the person who's leveling the boat might say, I want to live. And then they're going to, I don't know, maybe take off their shirt and say, okay, I'm going to take off my shirt and plug the hole. Does anybody have a better idea? So there's this willingness to interact with each other. There's a connection, accessing your resources, and there's taking action. Action is aligned with what it is you want. And it's pretty different from the blaming, the placating, computing, and distracting, isn't it?
Very
Yeah.
much so.
Useful, right? Actually doing
It's
something.
so much more useful. Yeah. And so I think in a big way, I used to be a really big computer, and it still sneaks in, right? We're all human. It's all going to come back every now and then, especially when under stress. And so there's that need to recognize it and forgive yourself so that you can move forward and take the actions that need to happen. So one of the things that used to really get in my way is that I would compute, right? And like we were talking in that computing of things, oh, if I could just figure out what's causing all of this pain and low. And so, I'd get x-rays, I had all the documents, and, I'd have all these experts telling me what was wrong, but it wasn't really making any difference. It
Yeah.
wasn't really making any difference. And I would go to and I mean, I had an excellent physiotherapist. He was really good. And because I went from some experts who would say, oh, you just need to do less, cut back on the yoga and stuff like
Mm.
that. And it was disappointing because it felt like my world was getting smaller and smaller, and it felt like I was getting trapped. And then I had I found a physiotherapist who had me doing deadlifts, and that was really cool because it felt like I could go and do life again. But then I'd relapse. It would be the smallest thing. I might be shoveling snow or something and have like the slightest slip, and then suddenly everything would flare up, and it felt like I had to start all over. That cycle, I was trying to figure out what the reason for it. Maybe there was a reason that was something that didn't necessarily have logic to it. Maybe it did have logic to it, but the analyzing and going into it wasn't helping me. It was actually focusing my thoughts in such a way that was making the problem worse.
Hmm. Very interesting. It's so valuable. We had someone on here a while ago who was talking about when you're dealing with chronic stuff. It could be chronic pain, it could be chronic health problems in any way, and how
Yeah,
life can be shrunk to the size of your symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
that's a great
basically
way to put it. Yeah,
what
that's
you're
a great way
describing.
to put it.
And it's like all of a sudden we have this little box that we can live in. And it's neat to see for you and what you've explained today about how hypnosis has widened that for you and made you realize that there's so much more possible in life and you can take your life back. That's awesome.
Yeah. And like because especially with physical things, like you get really trapped in the way you feel. You get really trapped in the way you feel, and then the way you feel creates your thoughts, and then your thoughts create how you feel. And it becomes like this self-feeding loop
Hmm.
of just thinking and feeling, and it becomes your whole world. And it's miserable. It's totally miserable. And being able to break out of it and find new things to focus on and new ways to be is,
Amazing.
yeah, I have my life back.
It's amazing. And I'm
Mhm.
curious, with you mentioning going through your own journey, having those slips or relapses, I'm sure with your own clients, they have similar stories to that. It may not be physical pain, it could be with weight loss, how there's whatever applies to that. And I know when we're under stress, we can typically like revert back to our old patterns because that's kind of the easiest
Yeah.
thing for us to do.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I don't really believe in doing hypnosis sessions like a one and done hypnosis session,
Mhm.
because yeah, you can have like extremely dramatic change. I get lots of clients who quit smoking in their first session, for example,
Mhm.
but there needs to be that follow up so that you can make sure that you're having
Yeah.
that you're really helping them choose being free of smoke in all different kinds of situations. So
Mhm.
like, yes, you'll be totally free in your day to day, but yeah, there's going to be stresses. There's going to be people who die. There's going to be those ups and downs. There's going to be breakups. There's going to be
Mhm.
hard days at work. And hypnosis isn't getting rid of all of these things. But it's helping you frame the way you interact with life so that you can respond to life in a way that's useful for you
Mhm.
and in alignment with what it is you want.
Yeah, and it's a great tool to be able to handle those situations when they come up too, because as you said, it's life. It's going to happen. So it's how do you
Yeah.
use that to move through it a lot faster than you normally would have.
Yeah. So like for example, I love using this metaphor with clients who have quit smoking. And so I provide service guarantees as well
Mhm.
for people to help provide that extra support for life, to allow for life, right? And so let's say I have a client who calls me up and is like, "Oh no, I need a tune up. I've smoked again," right? And sometimes they're worried that it means that like everything is ruined and they've undone the magic spell. And it's like, oh boy, no. Like, let's say you go and sleep with your ex or something, and you're like, oh no, does this mean I have to go back and be together with them? No, it does not. No, it does not, especially if it wasn't a healthy relationship, which smoking is definitely not a healthy relationship, right? So if there's, if you have a little slip, no, it doesn't mean that you've undone everything. You can still just put those boundaries up. If you've, gone and slept with your ex, you do not have to go back together with them. And and I think maybe we've all had that friend who might have called you up at one point and was like, "Oh no, I texted them. Does this mean that we're back together?" And it's like, no, it does not. It really doesn't mean that at all. You can decide to respond to it in a more useful way.
Which is amazing. It's life. Like, let's be honest
Yeah.
with ourselves, and knowing that you have this new resource and this new kind of item to add to your toolbox that's there when you need it is great. How can someone know if hypnosis is right for them?
That's a great question. Like I provide free screenings, which is kind of like a consultation to help to know the person, get to know what their goals are, and and we do a test to see like how well they pay attention and to see if it is a good fit, and if it's and sometimes, for example, a person might be able to use hypnosis as a tool, but if they're not ready to level, if they're not really ready to make the change in their life,
Mhm.
then it's probably not a good fit, right? So you want to like it's really important for the person to like be very sincere about wanting the change. Like I don't accept a person who's being forced to come quit smoking by their wife or something.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna accept that because they're not sincere about wanting the change.
Mhm.
And so it's really important for the person to want the change and be sincere about it and is ready to level and forgive themselves for the blaming, the placating, the computing, the distracting, to willing to forgive themselves for the patterns that brought them to the situation they're in.
Or any of the listeners who would like to find out more or would like to work with you, how is best to do that?
Yeah, so you can reach me through my website, hypnosisniagara.org. Another link to that is www.niagara.clinic. I also have a Facebook page, and you can also send me a text or a call at 289-219-1759. And then we can book a free hypnotic screening. I accept people both in person and online. I have lots of clients that I see through Zoom as well. So if it's something that you're interested in, there's no risk whatsoever. You can just contact me, and we can book a free screening and talk a little bit more about what your goals are and get to know you, and see if this is something that's going to really work for you.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We'll definitely put all of your contact information in the show notes. So if anyone's listening to this right now and thinks I need to check out this Gilian person, you can grab the links in the show notes as well, and the phone number to give you a call and leave a message. Do you have any final words of encouragement that you'd like to leave with the audience today?
It's a great question. When you're going through life, be kind to yourself. Always be kind to yourself. You're going to have goals, and that's a healthy thing. It's a healthy thing to want to have goals. And sometimes people will think that I can only be happy, or I can only like myself if I have done X, Y, Z in my life. And the thing is, that way of thinking is often one of the things that is hurting you the most and making it difficult to feel the motivation, because you're just beating yourself up. And so it's really important to be kind to yourself, to accept your humanness.
Mm-hmm.
We are all ordinary. Every person is ordinary. And I believe it was Stuart Emerson who said that it's the master who accepts their ordinariness and uses it as a platform to do extraordinary things. So accept your humanness, be human in the full range of your emotions, and use it as a platform to move through whatever challenge you're going into, so that you can have full access to all of your resources, moving through it, learning from it. You will get past it. There is another side.
Very well said. That was great. Thank you so much for being on with us. We really appreciate all of your insights and your metaphors and just encouragements for people out there who are looking for change. And you're just another resource that can help them get there if and when they're ready for it, because that's the key part. So for anyone to work with Gilian, please share our show notes and contact her as soon as you're ready. And thank you very much for tuning in today, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Lovely speaking with you. Bye.
Thank you.